you're looking for a power station to back up part of your home during an outage, power 240-volt appliances, or build towards a whole home backup system, you might have narrowed it down to the EcoFlow Delta Pro 3 and the newly released Jackery HomePower 3600 Pro Max. When it comes to spending your hard-earned money, which one is best for you? Welcome back to the lab where our opinions cannot be bought. For years, EcoFlow has been the brand to beat in this category. It started with the original Delta Pro, which was the highest funded electronic project on Kickstarter ever. Then it evolved into the Delta Pro Ultra, and then now into the Delta Pro 3. Jackery has released the HomePower 3600 Pro Max that looks like it is a direct competitor to EcoFlow's Delta Pro 3. When Jackery released this new power station, they made some pretty bold claims. We made a full review video going over Jackery's claims on this new power station if you want to check it out. And since the Delta Pro 3 is a flagship power station, we wanted to see how this new Jackery stacks up against it. On paper, they're incredibly close. Similar battery capacity and inverter outputs, similar home backup features, but they are very far apart in price. Jackery also has one big advantage that may be worth it depending on your needs. So here's the real question. Has Jackery released a new Delta Pro 3 competitor? But before we answer that, let's jump into a quick spec teardown on both these units to get you guys up to speed. When we're talking about battery capacity, the Delta Pro 3 has a 4,096 watt-hour battery, where the HomePower has a battery capacity of 3,584 watt-hours. Both units are expandable. The Delta Pro 3 is expandable to 12 kilowatt-hours, whereas the Jackery is expandable up to 21.5 kilowatt-hours. When it comes to multiple units, the Delta Pro 3 has the edge being expandable up to 48 kilowatt-hours, where the Jackery is only up to 43 kilowatt-hours. They both have the same output at 4,000 watts, where they both have 120 volt and 240 volt plugs. In terms of getting power back into these units, the Delta Pro 3 has a solar input of 2,600 watts combined between both ports. The Jackery comes up pretty short at 1,200 watts, and they both charge up to 1,800 watts with just a regular house plug. But when it comes to 240, the Delta Pro 3 and the HomePower, it has a 4,000 watt input. The weight of the Delta Pro 3 is 113 pounds, where the weight of the Jackery is 70.5, so the Jackery is easier to move around. The price of the Delta Pro 3 is $2,599 before our discount code, and the HomePower is $1,799 before our discount code, so there is a bit of a price difference. So these units are very similar on paper, but they do have some big differences. So I've set them up in our testing area, and I'm gonna walk you through what this looks like. Our grid connection runs under these stairs to right here, which will be plugged into either of these units. They will go through this cable into the inlet box, to a sub panel, and then power these loads. We do this so we don't have to plug our loads directly into these units. Both of these units have 240 volt. However, if you input 240 from the grid into this EcoFlow, you cannot output 240 volt. Now, if I were to grab 120 from the grid and plug it into the back of the AC input of the EcoFlow, now you can output 240 volts. So it's a little bit weird that EcoFlow does that, where Jackery is a true 240 in and 240 out. Now moving on to the output. If I plug this EcoFlow into the inlet box, I'll run close to 4,000 watts with the heat guns. And now I'm gonna simulate a power outage. So when we disconnect the grid, the heat guns are running just like it was before. So that is basic UPS. Obviously you would expect this from this unit, being that it is a 4,000 watt inverter. Now I'll show you what happens if you try to output more than 4,000 watts. So I'm going to reconnect the grid, power more than 4,000 watts. The unit trips and turns off. Now, this usually is common knowledge that it will trip if you go over that 4,000 watts. The reason I'm showing you this is because this Jackery has a bypass of 9.6 kilowatts. So all that means is when this Jackery is tied into the grid, you can run more than your 4,000 watts up to 9.6 kilowatts. So we'll do a quick example to show you what that looks like. So I'm gonna disconnect the outlet box and put it into the Jackery. I'm gonna connect the Jackery to the grid. Now I'm gonna start by turning on our 5,000 watt heater. There you go, so you can see grid present, outputting around 5,000 watts, which is our garage space heater. And now I'm gonna turn on some heat guns. So now you can see we're running way more than that 4,000 watt inverter rating. We're getting closer to that 9.6 kilowatts, which is the max bypass limit. This is great. However, there are two major drawbacks to this. One is that because you're outputting so much, you cannot charge. You can see here, we're inputting 0. So it's actually getting nothing from the grid. Oh, now it's starting to come back up around 500, but still, this is a very slow recharge rate if you're bypassing close to that max capacity. The second drawback to this, and probably the biggest, is that if you were to have a power outage while outputting higher than 4,000 watts, the unit surges, shuts off, and that's because the inverter is only 4,000 watts. So now I'm gonna turn the heat guns and the heater off, reconnect the grid. You can see it's charging much faster. And I'm gonna start introducing loads up until that 4,000 watts. Perfect. Now I'm going to simulate a power outage again. And just like the EcoFlow, it's powering the heat guns with no problem. So that's just basic UPS like we said before. Jackery is claiming that this unit will replace an automatic transfer switch, but in reality, you plug it into a manual transfer switch, set it to generator mode, and because of that bypass, you can run loads way higher than that 4,000 watt inverter, but if you were to get a power outage during that time, the unit's gonna die. If you are running 4,000 watts and you have a power outage, then yes, it's just basic UPS. This isn't automatic backup transfer. It is purely just UPS with the ability to run up to 9.6 kilowatts through the unit itself. Besides the bypass feature that this Jackery has, another advantage is the weight. It's only 70.5 pounds, which is roughly 40 pounds lighter than the EcoFlow Delta Pro 3. Another is the smaller footprint. It is taller, but is just as wide as the Delta Pro 3. This is nice because you can fit it in places you probably couldn't fit the Delta Pro 3, like under a workbench or in a small cabin. And lastly, to be honest, it is better for whole home backup because of that bypass feature. Now, the Jackery does stack up pretty good. Let's see what the Delta Pro 3 offers. Now, this Delta Pro 3 does have 512 more watt hours of battery. It has more than double the solar input than the HomePower, which makes a huge difference because you can literally charge it twice as fast. There's way more ports on this unit than the HomePower. There's 13 versus 7. It makes it more versatile. There's more USBs, there's a 30 amp, and multiple 240 volt plugs. You can do way more directly from this unit. Portability is also great because you have those wheels and a suitcase handle. All the ports are covered on this unit and they have flaps that actually slide back into the unit so that you don't break them off when you're trying to plug something in. The unit itself also has two orientations. It can be sitting like this, or it can be sitting on its back where you can use the screen from the top. EcoFlow also is a better ecosystem. You get a lot of accessories and many products that work well together. The EcoFlow also has full power charging while outputting loads. If you remember, the Jackery's charging input decreases when you're doing a high bypass. The Delta Pro 3 also has a higher expandable capacity. And lastly, it just looks more premium and kind of futuristic. So which is best for you? Honestly, the Jackery is a good option if that 9.6 kilowatt bypass is something you're interested in. But remember, if you're bypassing over 4,000 watts and a power outage happens, the unit will shut off and you'll have to turn some loads off and then turn the power station back on. And if you were only powering 4,000 watts or less during a power outage, then it'll just function as a UPS just like this Delta Pro 3. The Jackery is also a good option if you need to fit it in smaller places or you just want a lighter unit. The EcoFlow is better if you want more portability because those wheels and that suitcase handle is a huge benefit. You have more battery and a higher solar input, plus far more ports. And if you want to be part of a larger ecosystem, the EcoFlow has more to offer. Now remember, we will leave links to full review videos on both of these units in the description if you're interested, along with any discount codes, and try and save you guys as much money as possible. And if you think neither of these power stations are for you, then we built a power station quiz that takes you 60 seconds and gives you an instant recommendation based on your needs. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. Peace out and stay charged.